Hello and welcome to Bookish. It's a really rainy day here where I live, and so I thought what better way to spend part of a rainy day than making a video about books and editing it. The books I wanted to talk about today are two books that make up what I've heard some people refer to as the Hippo Duology. So those two books are River of Teeth and A Taste of Marrow by Sarah Gailey. I think that Sarah Gailey is an incredibly inventive, fresh, smart young author, and I really enjoyed these books. These are incredibly fun books. They're a really fun read, a really fun way to kind of get back just into reading books just for the sheer joy of, a fast-paced story with really interesting characters. Hippos play a large role in these books set in the American past. At some point in American history, a congressman or a businessman proposed that the United States import hippos and raise hippos domestically as a source of meat to deal with, hunger and food shortages and things like that. It was a pretty crazy idea, and it never got very far. Somehow or another, Sarah Gailey learned about that plan, and obviously it stuck in her mind, and she thought, this would make a great alternative history. So she took the idea and she set it back in about the 1890s in Louisiana, in kind of the swamps and the rivers of central Louisiana, above New Orleans, below Baton Rouge. The story is a fairly straightforward kind of caper. There are people hired and contracted to solve this problem of feral hippos in the river systems above a dam along one of the rivers in Louisiana. That's pretty much the basis of the story. What's really, though, fascinating about the story, and what really makes it fun, are the characters and the world that Gailey creates. So there are four main characters. The character who we're introduced to first, his last name is Houndstooth, and he is kind of a typical character from a Western. He's fast talking. He doesn't settle down. He falls in and out of relationships, which I don't think love have much to do with. He's very skilled, he's very brave, he's very capable and competent. He also is clearly bisexual, and he has romances and affairs and is attracted to both men and women throughout the novel. The second character, who I think is really another really interesting character, is the character of Hero. Hero is an African-American non-binary person who is an expert at explosives and the use of poison, and he is more or less a paid assassin who uses those two skills to eliminate people. The third character is Adelia. Adelia is herself an assassin, probably the most skilled or renowned assassin in the world that Sarah Gailey creates. She's an expert with knives. She carries dozens of knives with her. And when we meet her in the book, she is also pregnant and far along in that pregnancy. And then the fourth character is named Archie. Archie is a woman who frequently dresses as a man. Archie appears to be attracted to both men and women. She is also a rather large woman, and her size is frequently mentioned and referred to, but never as a joke. She's never made fun of. As a matter of fact, she's incredibly skilled and competent. She's of, French descent, so she speaks with a French Cajun accent, and she's very good at what she does. And what she does is be kind of a petty thief and a criminal. She's a pickpocket, she's a con artist, and she does all those things. Archie and Houndstooth know one another very well. So when Houndstooth is contracted to carry out this mission, and he goes to Archie as one of his first people who he contracts with to join his team, and then Hero also he brings on to join his team. Now, one thing you need to know about all the characters, all four of the characters I've mentioned, is that while they do work together, and they do, at least three of them know one another, you're never sure if they're actually all on the same side, at least not in River of Teeth, the first of the two books in the Hippo Duology. They seem to have some tension between them, and it's unclear whether or not at any moment they might turn against one another. So River of Teeth is primarily concerned with that caper. Taste of Marrow, which is a little bit longer, is about the aftermath of that mission to kind of pick up the characters scattered throughout central southern Louisiana. The Taste of Marrow is also a little bit more of a love story in a non-traditional sense. So there are a number of things about these books that are really fascinating to me. Now, I'll be honest with you, I picked up the book. I bought River of Teeth and read it at first because hippos are my favorite animal. That may seem like a relatively juvenile reason for a 50-year-old man to pick up books, but I really like hippos. So when I don't even remember where I first saw a review or a mention of this book, and it talked about hippos and alternative U.S. history, I thought, I love hippos, I love U.S. history, I want to see what this is all about. There are essentially two types of hippos. They're feral man-eating hippos who have taken over the river system and swamps of central Louisiana. They tump over boats, they eat people, they chew people into bits, they attack other hippos. They are just a real menace. They are the terror of this river system. In some ways, they function in the same role as the shark in Jaws functions. There are also, though, hippos that have been trained by people like houndstooth, who sometimes are referred to as hoppers, and they serve they serve as essentially horses. The characters ride hippos to the swamps and the jungles, become really attached to their hippos. Their hippos are both, animals who carry them from place to place, and they function almost like pets. And a lot of the times the characters' closest relationships, particularly in River of Teeth, seem to be with their hippos. They seem more loyal to their hippos than they do to people. The great thing, and I think what the real achievement of these books is, and again, I'm not talking about these books as great works of literature, but as very fun, inventive, smart books. The great thing about these books to me is that the world, that alternative history, that alternative America that Sarah Gailey creates in these books, is an America in which race seems to matter not at all. One of the secondary characters is a 6'4" African American federal marshal who's stationed in Louisiana. If you know anything about Louisiana in the 1890s, you probably know that that's not really possible. The other thing is that nobody seems to be amazed by the idea that these hippos are serving as horses, that they're pack animals and they're animals that people ride. There's just a whole language involving the hippos and hippo stables and hippo wranglers and people who raise hippos, and it's all done very, I think, inventively in the book. In addition to that, there are no judgments about people's sexuality or sexual identities. Never in the books do you find characters who look askance at bisexual relationships. You never find characters who look down on or demean or attack the characters because of their sexuality. The non-binary character of Hero is never subject to abuse or any kind of thing because of his sexuality, and everybody just accepts it. Archie dresses as a man sometimes, and she dresses as a woman sometimes, and members of both sexes find her attractive. There is no judgment about that. This is kind of I think really an amazingly unique way to look at the United States of America, almost an alternative history that is better than the time period of American history in which we live. You get all that, you get this great kind of adventure caper story, you get these really new, interesting characters, and you get hippos. So if you're looking for, to me, a couple of books you can read, in a day, in an afternoon, remembering I'm a slow reader, you can read relatively quickly, that are just going to be fun, that are just going to have you turning the pages and being impressed by the inventiveness and the intelligence of the author and the uniqueness of the characters and the uniqueness of the story. I would highly recommend these two books, River of Teeth and Taste of Marrow by Sarah Gailey. I really enjoyed both of them. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about the review, or if you've read these books in the comments.